Trish Reagan of Fox News decided to branch out from her usual criticism of the left, which is typically just
Venezuela.
Because what else do they have? When we say we want Medicare for all, they say
Venezuela.
When we say we want a federal jobs guarantee, they say
Venezuela.
When we say that nobody should be denied the opportunity to go to college simply because they can't afford it or their parents weren't wealthy, their response is always
Venezuela.
So, credit where it's due, Trish Reagan decided to actually branch out from the usual argument and hear us out, because when they say
Venezuela,
we always say, no, we're not talking about Venezuela, we're talking about social democracies in Scandinavia, Denmark. That's the type of countries.
Okay. Mike, I'm going to be hard on you because you are highly intelligent. As a matter of fact, I consider you the best on the internet at doing what you're doing. So I'm going to be really hard on you here. First of all, Mike, what's the difference between Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, and Scandinavia? I mean, when I mean Scandinavia, I'm talking about Norway and Sweden, Denmark, and all the countries you would name off. What's the difference between them, Mike? I mean, you know what the difference is. I mean, that much is obvious, right? Obviously, the South American countries, and you can throw in all kinds of African and Asian, Southeast Asian countries, they're all poor, right? Why are they poor? They're poor because of hundreds of years of imperialism, colonialism, what have you, from the European countries, and then the last 100 years or so from the United States, right? And probably with the help of Europe, and because we're a proxy army for the rest of the white world, right? Okay, so they've never been allowed to develop along with the rest of the world. Countries that are friendly, that don't oppress each other, right? That aren't oppressed by another country, they develop alongside all the countries around them. I mean, look at any country, and you'll see when they're not oppressed, they may go through a period in the very beginning where they suffer from being behind, but it's like putting whiskey in water. It eventually all spreads out through the water, and you end up with whisk water or something. So, all that would happen over time. And you wouldn't end up with what you've got. Now, on top of that, not only were they oppressed in the past, but countries like Cuba and Venezuela are currently being oppressed, especially economically. The rich Americans who are just essentially evil, they just can't stand the idea of any country having an economy unless they get a cut. So we invaded Iraq, right? Now who gets 75% of the oil profits? Who gets 75% of the oil profits in Saudi Arabia? And yeah, we do some work for it, our companies, but what we do that work for is we do that for them so that they can't do it themselves. We don't want them developing the ability to pump oil and process oil the way we do. We don't want them doing anything. Now, China's a lot different. They go into countries and they help those countries develop. And I think the reason they do it is to oppose us, because they know if they can help other countries develop, not only will they be beholden to them, but they'll also be able to stand up a little better to, what I'm really saying is white people are assholes. We may be better at killing people and at dominating, and we may be the more vicious animal out of the, out of this world. But we're really fucking up the world, aren't we? And you know all this. So, you talk about them talking about Venezuela. Well, I'm telling you, Mike, you ought to be proud of Venezuela. You ought to look at them as the mental midget. They're like a guy who's brain damaged, who has an IQ of 60 and rises up in the capitalist system to become the CEO of the biggest company in the world. It reminds me of Isaac Asimov's book, where the character, the mule, I mean, he basically was a little troll, but he developed mental powers. He could control the way people think and things like that, and he became the ruler of the universe. So, have a heart, Mike. Venezuela is just a wonderful country full of amazing people. Everybody looked at Chavez as what a troll, right? Because Americans are taught to go by looks, right? And they hated Chavez. And how many times did I see that bitch on TYT? She's cute, but what a moron. Call Chavez a dictator. He did not get into power. Matter of fact, he tried to get in power. Not him precisely, but him and a lot of other military tried to do a coup, but it was way back, and they didn't even really, it was kind of half-hearted. They didn't really try. But he was elected president, and if you talk to Jimmy Carter, you'll find out that they consider, the officials who overlook elections, the UN or whoever, all these big people, they say Venezuela's elections are the fairest in the world. Nicaragua's elections, when the Sandinistas win, everybody knows the Sandinistas have vast more support. If you don't understand this, watch The Real News, where they did a 3-part segment on Nicaragua with Max Blumenthal. If you don't understand this, if you don't completely understand that doesn't take two to tango, just one. And in Nicaragua, that's what you've got. And not only do you have one attacking the other and starting all the shit, but they're completely funded and backed by wealthy Americans. And if they are having American government funding, it's because wealthy Americans are stealing from the American taxpayers, arranging for our taxes to go. Wouldn't be the first time, right? You ever hear of Iran-Contra? So, Mike, have a heart, have some balls, let your balls drop, and support all these countries, Nicaragua, and support their version of socialism. They are not tyrants. Just because they have to defend themselves from fascists in their own country who are backed by the United States, you're going to brand them as tyrants? If somebody comes in my front door with a bazooka and a Gatling gun and starts shooting up the whole place, and I shoot him in the head and him, I'm a tyrant? This is the analogy, Mike. You have to get used to it. You're going to have to get used to it, because, as much as I appreciate you, you're still a little bit propagandized.